Let's talk about a side of ancient Indian history you might not know. A story that's not just about philosophy and spirituality, but about global trade, massive navies, and some serious power politics that still has lessons for us today.
You know, we've all heard this idea, right? That ancient India was this uniquely pacifist place, totally focused inward and kind of detached from all the messy power games of the world. But is that really the whole story?
Yeah, well, when you actually dig into the evidence, history tells a radically different story.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll see just how India was a trading superpower 1,000 years ago. Then, we'll get into the Chola Empire's incredible military power play. After that, a bit of a cautionary tale about what happens when a great power just disappears. And finally, we'll connect the dots and see what all these ancient lessons mean for today.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Picture it. The year is around 1000 AD. The world economy is obviously very different, but believe me, it was just as interconnected.
The global economy was basically a huge trade network that revolved around three major hubs. You had the Fatimid Empire over in the Eastern Mediterranean, the mighty Song Empire in China, and, sitting right in the middle of it all, the Chola Empire of southern India. And this wasn't just some side business. Indian merchants were absolutely dominating this global trade.
So how on earth did they do it? Well, this wasn't just a few individuals sailing around. This was driven by massive, highly organized merchant guilds. The best example is a group known simply as the 500. And really, you should think of them less as a guild and more like an ancient multinational corporation.
And they were unbelievably sophisticated. The 500 probably had, get this, up to 500 shareholders, just like a modern company. They were running operations all across Asia, and this is my favorite part, they had their own private navies to protect their valuable cargo from pirates. This was a serious global operation.
So you're probably asking, who was bankrolling all of this? The money guys? The answer might actually surprise you. It was the medieval Hindu temples, especially the ones along the coast. See, they weren't just places of worship. They were the heart of the financial system, acting like banks and even venture capitalists, funding these huge trading missions. That's a big reason why they became so incredibly wealthy.
Now, whenever there's that much money and trade on the line, you know conflict is bound to happen. And this brings us to the Chola Empire, and an amazing story of how they used overwhelming military force to protect their economic interests.
Okay, so here's the crisis. The Srivijaya Empire, which was based in Sumatra, manages to get control of the two main sea routes to China. And with backing from the Chinese, they do what any monopolist does. They crank up the prices, jacking up the tariffs like crazy. This was a direct shot at the Chola-led trade network.
The Chola response was just cold, calculated, and decisive. First, they sent a little warning raid in 1017. The Srivijayans just blew it off. Big mistake. So in 1025, the king, Rajendra Chola, puts together a massive naval force, almost certainly using the private navies of those merchant guilds we talked about. They sailed across the Bay of Bengal and just systematically crushed them. They sacked the ports, destroyed their army, and broke the monopoly. Just like that, the trade routes were open for business again.
This one episode from 1,000 years ago teaches us a lesson that is absolutely timeless. Economic power and military power are two sides of the same coin. They're joined at the hip. To protect its trade, ancient India was more than willing to project hard power. You simply cannot have one without the other.
Okay, now let's fast forward a few centuries to a very different kind of story. This one isn't about projecting power, but about the failure to do so. And it's a really powerful cautionary tale.
So in the early 1400s, the Indian Ocean was dominated by one undisputed superpower, Ming China. Their treasure fleets were colossal. I mean, just look at that number. A single expedition could have 25,000 sailors. Their ships were technologically a century ahead of anything in Europe. They were showing the world who was boss.
And then, almost overnight, the greatest navy on the planet just disappeared from the seas.
So what happened? Were they defeated in some huge battle? Nope. Their downfall came from within. A new emperor took power, and he was backed by bureaucrats who were rivals of the faction that ran the navy. So they did what bureaucrats do best. They cut the funding. The world's most powerful fleet was simply left to rot in port.
This created a massive power vacuum in the Indian Ocean. Now, India's Vijayanagara Empire was rich and had a long coastline and was wealthy from sea trade. You'd think they would have stepped in, but they didn't. They made no attempt to fill that void, and into this empty space sailed Vasco da Gama. With just 3 small ships, a tiny European power was able to take over an entire ocean because the big guys had either gone home or failed to step up.
And this just hammers home a critical lesson. Retreating behind your walls does not keep you safe. For India, failing to project power into the sea didn't mean they'd be left alone. Far from it. The next wave of colonization came directly from that very same unguarded ocean.
So, what can these two powerful stories from history teach us about the world we're living in right now? Let's just boil it down. First, hard power matters. Economic strength and military might are totally intertwined. Second, a nation's internal politics can be more important than any external enemy. A great power can be undone from the inside out. And third, you can't just retreat from the world. Active engagement is absolutely necessary to survive and thrive. The big lesson for any rising power today is the need for what you could call an all-of-nation approach. Your military, your economy, and your private sector can't be in separate silos. They have to be woven together, working as a team to project a united front to the world.
And that leaves us with a final crucial question. The global order is shifting again, right? And history offers two clear paths. There's the path of the Cholas, proactive engagement to go out and secure your interests. Or there's the path of their successors, a passive retreat that just creates a vacuum for someone else to fill. That choice is what will define the future.